Hi, I'm Steve from the Agile Mastery Show, and today we are joined by not one but two major players in the Agile universe, co-authors of the now legendary book Agile Bullshit. Noel Warnell and Koen Vastmans, welcome to the Agile Mastery Show.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much. That's quite an introduction.
Well, yeah, it is all granted and relevant, believe me. So, before we get into the book, we're going to talk a lot about that. I just wanted to get a sense of your sort of respective journeys, how you got into Agile. What are your backgrounds? How did you get here, essentially?
Yeah, sure. Happy to start. Thanks very much for the invitation to come on. It's lovely to be part of it. I love doing anything that supports the community. I guess in terms of my journey, it is varied, but mostly born out of frustration and opportunity and being willing to say yes to things. So I was a business analyst after many years of being a trainer application, like software application trainer in the finance sector. And then ended up over the years starting to diversify beyond that into other areas and industries. But along the way, I was told what team I was going to be in for one of these contracts. And it was a team that had this strange language that they were using and different people like doing these facilitatory type roles. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. And within a couple of weeks, I was completely hooked. It just made sense to work in this iterative way. And obviously, over time, I learned that we were doing a blend of Scrum and XP. And over the years, yeah, just absolutely followed this path of agility in all its various shapes and sizes. I've worked in a safe role for a couple of years. I've been a Kanban trainer and now independent consultant that's lucky to work with a few different organizations at the same time. So, yeah, it's been a long journey, 20 odd years, and I love it. Hopefully, there's another 20 years to go.
Yeah, wonderful. And I resonate with that. It was one. I mean, for me, that was exactly it. It's like I felt like I'd come home. You
Mm,
sort of arrive, and you're like, God, why haven't people been doing this all the time? Koen, how
absolutely.
about yourself?
My story is a bit different. So I have a developer background, been in Java development for more than 10 years. And I was a regular visitor of a conference in Belgium called Javapolis, which later was renamed to Devox. There's also a London version and a French version. They're all across Europe and so on. But in DevOps, it was not only focusing on Java development and development patterns and techniques and frameworks and so on, but they also had a part about methodologies and so on. And that's where I picked up some ideas about Agile, where I got to know Agile concepts. I got to know from very, very interesting speakers. Like that's where I saw David J. Anderson talking about Kanban, where I saw Mary Poppendieck talking about lean software development. People like Scott Ambler, when he was still with IBM, when he still had to write a book about DAD. But these are things that influenced me. So I picked up different ideas. I was never one framework type of person. So from DevOps, I really picked up different ideas, concepts, techniques, and I started gradually applying them in the way we as a small development team arranged our work. And that's how I gradually evolved to applying a whole set of practices and never starting like we're doing Scrum, for instance. But I was like, let's do something like a Kanban view to have a view on our work and do practices from extreme programming to built-in quality and to have continuous integration and so on. So that's how I got involved in Agile. And then later, when 2011, when I switched roles away from development more into training and coaching, I was asked to join a team of agile coaches, and that's where in the organization I work, we were kind of pioneering agile in a broader context. inspired by disciplined agile delivery from Scott Amber and Mark Lyons. So that was my journey in agile.
So you've seen some different sides of it, right? You've been in different
Absolutely.
areas,
Yeah.
and can probably resonate for all sides of from engineering and things. Okay, should we get into the book? So first of all, how did it come about? How come you both came to write it together as co-authors, and what was the process like of doing it together as a pair?
That's quite a history.
Hmm.
It all started with a post from Noel, who made a visual summary of the Agile Bullshit detector, which was an article from the Department of Defense, I think. And there was the original visual was not very clear, and Noel made a prettier visual, and I replied to that post he did on LinkedIn that it just reminded me of an idea that I had for a conference subject, an Agile Bullshit bingo, based on kind of things people say, and do a kind of a bingo game with that. And that's how we just started making the bingo game to start with. So the three of us, because there was also Michele D'Urso, an Italian guy who joined, who also participated in creating the list of statements and making a kind of an online version of the bingo game. So that's how we started in 2022, I guess. And it was a process of 8 months at least to get the drawings done for all the statements. So we really want to make this kind of a visual card deck. That was the idea.
So that was the original concept
Yes.
behind it. It was about a game, right?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. It was a very agile, iterative product development process, ironically, or unsurprisingly. But yeah, the intention was never to write a book. But as Koen said, we connected. I don't even know how we connected. I think we got some mutual connections. But
From a training with Charles Louis de Mare, we did together.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we've never met, Steve, in person.
Right.
We've never been in the same. Well, we've probably been in the same country at the same time, but we've never actually met face to face. So, what we used to believe about you have to be, all in one location as a team to get stuff done. Yeah, probably we would have got it done quicker, but actually it wasn't an issue for us. But I think part of that is because we've actually got closer to 80 co-authors, because the way that it started becoming an idea for a book was once we had the images for each of the cards. It was actually Koen who just posted one of them on LinkedIn and said, "Here's my thoughts about why this is an anti-pattern." And people started to interact with it. And I thought, okay, and we hadn't even discussed this at this point, but I saw that he did it. And I was like, okay, a couple of weeks later, I just sent him a message to say, oh, I've done the same thing. I've picked one of the other cards and I've posted it. And then we got talking about, well, why don't we just do this for the whole deck? We've got 50 odd cards. There's 50 odd weeks in a year. So let's just do one a week for a year. Let's call it a year of Agile BS. And if at the end of it, we are still getting interest and we're still getting comments from the community, then potentially we got a load of material that we can just wrap up and bundle together to make a book. And luckily, that's what happened.
When we started writing the first post, we didn't have the intention of bundling this. It was never the intention, but the amount of information we collected, not only our opinions, but like Noel said, the 80 plus people who contributed with their comments, there was such a huge amount of knowledge that you couldn't just leave gathering dust on LinkedIn. So we definitely had to do something with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that for me, it was reading it. It was something that really stood out. Actually, it was that everything that you were doing is validated by this sort of huge group of professionals. So that wasn't the intention, but that kind of brought it into a kind of wrapped,
Yeah.
a transcript, I suppose, or
Yeah, and
no.
as time went by, it increased our confidence that this is an interesting way of talking about things, and it's not necessarily anything that people haven't heard before, but just that the twist on it to be about an anti-pattern and to be a little bit provocative and cheeky with the wording around it just seemed to interest people enough to comment on it. And so, yeah, I mean, there were probably over 200 different people who commented on the LinkedIn posts. And yeah, a subset of those got included in the book, but it's still over 80. So yeah, it's a really interesting experience that
Yeah.
kind of emerged quite naturally.
Yeah. So this just sort of to give viewers an indication of what the book is about. So you mentioned about anti-patterns, but sort of
Yes.
the general kind of summary or synopsis of what it is and why it's important.
Hmm.
That's a good question. We started with writing a list of things that popped our mind, like that doesn't work here, we're different. That's something that you probably hear in many organizations. That yeah, what we're preaching, what we want to try out, that's not fit for the organization. So and then yeah, you come to different things that are similar, like everything is a must, or like we dropped retrospectives. Yeah, these kinds of statements just resonate.
Mm.
Things that we hear several times. And yeah, that's where we started working with.
Hmm. And just to add on that as well, so it's someone asked this when we first published the front cover of the book. They said, "Oh right, yeah, you're talking about Agile's bullshit, isn't it?" I completely agree. It's like, okay, no, um, Agile is not bullshit, but there is a lot of kind of bullshit that goes along with it, and there's a lot of nonsense, and like Agile is dead. So okay, fine. If you don't want to talk about Agile, let's not talk about it. But guess what? We're all still going to be doing it, and it's still going to work. And so it was very much to surface common anti-patterns that we've experienced in our career as a way for people to have a conversation about it, but also to have some ideas about how they might solve it if they experience it themselves. So yeah, common anti-patterns and how to get past them.
Yeah. So it really touches upon something that I'm sure a lot of Scrum Masters and Agile coaches also battle with this through their careers. Me certainly in the earlier part is the difference between or how to be a purist or when to be a purist and when to be pragmatic and kind of even though you know it's bullshit, kind of you kind of go with it because it's almost like, well, I'll lose this battle, but I'll win the war,
Mm,
essentially. So
absolutely.
so how I mean, how would from writing the book, how do you help in that way? What's your thoughts around it?
Mm,
I think every statement is an exaggeration on its own. So the nuance is in the way we explain things, why we think certain things are BS, and what to do instead, and what the rules are, so to say, or how to do it better. But it's not always black and white, of course. I think especially with the comments that we got, a lot of nuance is in the text as well
hmm
about
Yeah.
each statement.
And not everyone agrees, and actually that's
Mm,
okay. And we quite enjoyed that in a sick way, that people sometimes were a little bit antagonized or frustrated with our opinion. But again, it starts the conversation, and
mm,
that's what we were hoping with. So to your point about being purist or being pragmatic, in our experience, anything that just helps to start a conversation about this stuff is useful. And so that was very much our intent.
and I guess to validate people's thinking that it's okay to challenge, right? For
Absolutely.
people, if when you hear this sort of stuff like it's not going to work here because we do things differently or whatever, um, that it's okay to challenge that, to say, well, why? why is that you feel like that? How come you guys are so unique? But
Mhm.
going back to your point, Noel, about some people would disagree and they would feel antagonized. I actually am the opposite. I when I was reading it and I was writing notes, I thought what I'd do is I'd write notes to help me with this conversation so that we can kind of get into a bit of it. And I'll write down the things that I agree with, and I'll make a comment against the things I disagree with. And I just felt like I was just writing down everything. I just gave up after like chapter one because it was just too it was just basically, it was like, well, yeah, that's it. Obviously it is. That's fine. So I found that it's just something that really resonates, even though we kind of, going back to the point about being pragmatic or being a purist, as I've grown in my career, just being able to understand actually sometimes the environment is just really complex or
Mhm.
challenging and the people are really difficult to work with and we have to kind of work around it. But it's great that that validation is there, that people can sort of say, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah,
you
and
know
when agility, whatever framework you're using, whatever tools you're using, they are exactly that, tools. They are not the goal. The goal is to change your ways of working, to be more efficient, to be more effective, to have a reduced time to market, or various other metrics that may be important to you. But that's the goal. And so I'm less interested in, whether SAFe is a good scaling framework or whether you can successfully use Scrum with Kanban. I think as practitioners, they're interesting questions for us, but certainly for our clients and our customers, they don't give a shit. And so, although we have followed a lot of the Scrum patterns in the book because that's the most well known, it's not that we're advocating for that. It's just this is probably the most likely thing that you'll hear or the context that you'll see. But yeah, it's really not about that. It's about how do we switch the conversation over until the things that are actually important for your outcomes for your business.
if we can just sort of go into the aspects of things that you guys have seen in your experiences around transformation as a whole or agile implementation as a whole, and think, how does that really impact transformation? Like what is really going on, or why isn't it really being acknowledged that that's the big problem?
Hmm.
I think a lot of people, a lot of organizations start with the idea that you take a cookbook, and you start implementing these patterns, these practices, and then you're done. But if you don't know what's behind all these activities that you're doing, why you're doing these, you still end up with the same old mindset, but trying to fit in new activities that don't match, and then you have things like the opinion of people that there's too many meetings, for instance, because you still stick to the old habits, and then you bring in some new practices on top of, which is a mismatch. So that's what I think is where transformations tend to fail, is where you just stick to implementing the cookbook, and then you're done.
Hmm. Yeah. And I'd offer something a little bit different as well. And this is one of the other fun things about the experience. Like me and Koen don't always agree on things. And we've got a very different skill set. It was quite hard for me to have an opinion about some of the more technical elements because that's not my background. But for me, it's very much about connecting the dots across an organization. And if you can help people at the team level understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, who they're doing it for, what problem it solves, and that ties in with the department or the organizational strategy, and there's this consistency across flight levels, if you like, or across the different levels of the organization, that's for me the thing that makes the biggest difference. So when you're asked to come in and work with a leadership team, great. But if you're not also working with teams or people who are in that coordinating kind of middle management layer, then there's going to be a limit to how much impact you're going to have. And there's going to be a limit to how long that change will last. So for me, that's the key thing with any kind of digital transformation. There's a lot of people at the moment that are trying to adopt the product operating model, and it's the same thing. Unless you connect the dots across all the levels, then you're going to struggle to get the results that you hope for.
Yeah, and also the other way around. If you only stick to the management level and train these people, and you omit the people who are actually doing the work and focus their change, focus on what they have to do differently, yeah, then it's a total failure. Then they don't know what, if the developers don't know what agile development is about, how to build in quality, how to speed up and deliver smaller chunks in iterations, yeah, they they then tend to stick to their old habits again, and then they're doing big batch of analyses, and then yeah, you're lost. You will never reach the goal of agile.
So it's the role of the coach is really just to build the bridges or break down the walls as essentially and link together. Why doesn't it happen though? Why do we, 20 years on, 25 years on, why are we still having that battle?
I've got an opinion on this, and that
Go
is
for it.
that so the agile coaching role emerged off the back, I think, mostly from Lisa Adkins' book around coaching agile teams. And all of a sudden, you had a bunch of people who were fairly young or early stage Scrum Masters saying that they're now agile coaches. And okay, fine. But I think regardless of what you called yourself and when, I think we've done a pretty crap job of articulating the value that we provide to organizations. As an industry in general, I think we over the last 10 years have not been able to say this is the impact of us, our role, and what we do. And we're starting to now, but until everyone builds that into their practice and is keen on getting measurable insights and data that show value, then I think there's always going to be a challenge with when you go into an organization being able to influence at those different levels.
Yeah, impact is it's a huge gap for sure. Being able to demonstrate it, we can give anecdotal evidence, right?
It's not
I
enough.
was not
Yeah,
enough, but
it's not enough.
measurable, actual
Yeah,
measurable impact.
and there's
Mm,
such simple ways to do it. Even if you're using something like the Spotify or Crisp health check,
mm,
that's been around for years, and
mm,
you can easily within half an hour to an hour with a team get a baseline measure there that gives you something that tells you where your opportunities are to help, and you can measure that again using exactly the same tool 3 months, 6 months later, and you can put numbers behind that to say there's been an 80% increase in this team's collaboration, for example. So there are plenty of simple tools out there to use that will help us do this. But anecdotal evidence, great. People like who you are and you get on well with people, fine. But what's the impact on the bottom line?
mm. And I mean, I certainly struggled with this kind of stuff early in my agile coaching pathway, as it were, in that organizations didn't actually understand what it was that they were transforming from, and what the baseline measures were. There was no real, I didn't go in there with an assessment of their organization to then get a baseline, as you mentioned, to then be able to really demonstrate the impact. So is that what is really missing then? Is that organizations are not really seeing just, like the budget holders, decision makers are just looking at it and going, well, what have they actually done?
Mm.
You
I
know?
think in the interview process, if you're a contractor or you're a permanent person, that has to be a question that you're asking the organization that's
Mm,
thinking about hiring you is, how do you measure your success? How will I know that I've
mm,
been successful, or how will you measure me when I come in? And if they can't answer that question with, oh, it's these two things, then I would poke a little bit more, and,
mm.
because that's to say, oh no, people will tell me how you're getting on. Well, how? But against what metric? What value? What measure? So it's super important that organisations themselves are clear on what they hope to get from having more agility in their business, if that's what they're after, or having more of a product mindset, and then that's where we can build from. So it's about articulating our value, but in relation to what is important to the organisation.
So be it like business impact, what it can
Yeah.
actually
Mm.
achieve. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I happen to be lucky to be involved in a program that's transforming the governance as a whole. It's the driver was a change of a tool that we use in our organization to manage budgets and so on. But the thing is that this was a great opportunity to also modify the process to improve the way we're doing things and make this more agile, to bring in the agile mindset more. And this is also when we experience, when we try to bring the message of what we're going to change to the organization gradually, that we see mismatches in what's missing in the agile mindset. So for us, at the same time, this is a great opportunity to bring back the original ideas of agile, what we want to achieve with the agile manifesto, for instance. Just bring that back under the attention, because that's definitely missing. The people really involved in the budgeting part often still think in terms of year budgets and in project and in programs, and
Yeah,
that's a serious shift.
yeah, it's a good. So it's going back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
mean, do we feel, or do you guys feel that we're sort of fighting a bit of a losing battle, or in its current form, like transform the way that we go in and do transformation and that kind of thing. Are we fighting a losing battle? Do we need to take stock, take a reflection, and look at what's really working, what isn't working, and really sort of almost create a new a new sort of form of it? I don't know. I mean,
No,
what are your thoughts
yeah.
around that? Mm,
So I think there's always going to be a need for the kind of work that we do, which is
Absolutely.
breaking things down into small, manageable chunks, because we work in a very complex, very fast moving environment where things are unknown before you start. So, what we do is a crucial part of any business. So, I don't think whether or not people, obviously, the word agile is going out of fashion.
mm,
That's, the last couple of years, there's been plenty of content written about that. Marty Kagan has done a great job of bringing the product operating model to people's awareness, and a lot of people are adopting that in big organizations. But a lot of it is very similar in its
mm,
intent and in its origins from the work that we do. So, and as an independent business owner, there are still people coming to me saying, we want to be more agile. We
mm,
want to get better at how we deliver software. And so the market obviously has been difficult over the last few years, and a lot of roles like Scrum Master roles have been starting to drift away. But there are other roles that are starting to come up, like delivery manager, for example.
mm.
So for me, I don't see that there's any gap or problem with the need. I think it's just a gap between how people see that we can help them meet that need.
So what I observe is that the big chunk of the big wave of transformations is over, probably. Like I
Mm,
said, they think they implemented the cookbook, and so they achieved their goal. That's also what you see in, for instance, scaled agile framework. The big wave of safe transformations is probably done, or otherwise they wouldn't put everything behind a paywall, because there's less need for training and coaching at this moment. So they try to get some extra pennies from the information they can sell. Similarly, you see that Agile Alliance wasn't doing well last year, so they got acquired by PMI. That's also a symptom that you see, but the need to get the basic Agile knowledge is still there. The need to know what slicing is about, for instance, how to properly prioritize. These things remain. So that's where we can still make a difference, I think. And
I
that's
think
back to
that's the
basics.
it's back to basics. But to your point, Noel, perhaps does it just need a rebrand? Maybe not a change of name. I don't. I mean, I'm a bit torn in that one.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
a rebrand or a re-energizing of what it is, because the need is certainly there for sure. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
without dispute.
Well, a perfect example of that is my company name is now Agile,
Mm,
and that is not how I brand myself anymore. My branding, my website are different to that. I've removed the word Agile from that
mm,
because it is going out of fashion, and you have to adapt like we should be doing with our products and our product development. You listen to the market feedback and you adapt and experiment with other things to see what works and what doesn't. So we should very much be, like you're suggesting, challenging. Okay, are we articulating this in the right way? Are we are we stuck? Are we kind of doing the opposite of what we preach or what we teach? In that we're stuck on it has to be this product that's branded in this way for these customers. And actually, is there a more innovative, iterative, experimental approach that we can apply to figure out, okay, well, what is landing now? If it's not that, then what is it? And how can we support people and how can we help bridge that gap?
I don't. I'm still torn with the word, because I do think it does carry weight. Are we just like the kind of pragmatism versus purist
Mm,
form? Are we stating there that we're challenging here, aren't we? With whether agile is just become a dirty word. I mean, one of my scrum masters that I work with. Um, you know, she's basically been told by her organization not to use the word agile in any context because it just gets people's backs up. So I
mm-hmm,
think there is a real
mm-hmm,
resistance to it that is brought.
mm-hmm.
It has become very, very awkward in certain conversations. I think just because it maybe going back to the point around we just can't really articulate the impact of it and really showcase some really good agile stories. I mean, some obviously.
I've heard the same thing when I've gone into organizations is, don't mention the A word. It's like, okay, fine, then that's totally fine. I think it obviously did originate in the software development 20 odd years ago in terms of the manifesto at least, and it is more widely applicable now and is being used across multiple other domains as well as just software development.
Was that the point perhaps? Maybe the sort of when business agility sort of rose up and we went beyond software and product teams, software development teams, that it sort of started to manifest in other ways, in other areas, other departments of the organization. But was that the point then that it started to become really challenging and complex because we had a bit of a battle against organizations that we couldn't quite say, well, it's not just software, it applies everywhere, and maybe that
Mm.
became more of a challenge, more of a demon to work
Yeah.
with. What do you
It,
think?
it did bring different things to the product together, of course. Otherwise, the safe big picture wouldn't be that big from idea to delivery. So, but yeah, on the other side, I do think we shouldn't forget where the thing comes from, and also sometimes get back to making better software because that's not always the case. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's the bringing everything together definitely is a challenge, but also the good thing of the evolution of agile.
Mhm. Yeah. These things all go in waves. I listened to a talk from Simon Powers last week, and he was talking about the different waves, and that resonated with me. And I think this wasn't his point in the talk, but if you think back, say 10 years ago, many of us were like Boy Scouts and Girl Guides trying to get all the badges. You know, I want to be a Scrum Master, I want to be a product owner, I want to do the Kanban training, I want to do less, safe, discipline, agile, whatever it was. Just, you know, we've got naturally, I think, a very strong growth learning mindset. And so a lot of people invested a lot of time and money in training themselves, which is great. And sometimes what then happens is you come in with these ideas and, okay, I've been trained on this thing, I'm going to teach you this thing. And it starts to become less pragmatic and less tailored and customized to the client. And every team, every individual, every organization has their own specific needs. And as the industry has matured, I think we're getting to that point now where many of us can pick the right tool for the right job more easily. And it is less about talking about or starting with agile. And it's much more about what are your needs, what are your outcomes, and how can we support you and your teams and your leaders to get closer to that.
Learning something from a training was, in my opinion, or from something you picked up from a video or a blog or whatever, was always a good opportunity to see if you see something in an organization where people were struggling with, was trying this out and see if this really works, and you yourself getting better at applying it as well. So it's not all negative that we try to push everything in the organization that we learned because we know this, but yeah, it's also a way to getting better to it yourself. For me, it definitely helped to do things like story mapping with an organization, with a part of a team, for instance, to get better at it myself.
Yeah, like experimenting and learning, right?
Absolutely.
Building experience from that.
Yeah.
So going back to the book a little bit and thinking about how if you know it's aimed at Scrum Masters, but leadership as well. Like what do you think would be a really good takeaway? You know, what sort of things would a leader reading the book? What sort of outcomes would you like for them to have?
I would love them to be able to spot things that are happening in their organization or within their teams and be able to laugh about it. That would be my hope. It would be that recognition of actually maybe we're guilty a little bit of this, and it provokes that thought, that conversation, what might be better instead. I mean, we've sold not a huge number, we sold a couple of hundred of the books through Amazon, but I have given away probably 20, 30 books as well, often to leaders in organizations that I go into. And whether they read it or not, I don't know. I can't control that, but that's always the intention is, look, there's some stuff here that you might find interesting. And if you've got any questions or you see anything here that you disagree with, great. Let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah, just like you say, it should really evoke conversation and get people thinking and get people talking and do you guys have some sort of forum group? I mean, you said you had your LinkedIn page. Is there something that people can kind of go and get involved in those kind of conversations to sort of collect guidance? Or
we haven't got anything specific, so we don't run a meetup group around this. So we have been quite lucky. Like this podcast, we've been invited to a number of things over the last year since the book was launched, where we're able to help tell the story and just again trigger the conversation. You're most likely to find me on LinkedIn or at events in and around London related to the Agile community. Next one will be the Scrum Exchange in November. Koen, you'd find him in, well, I'll let you say where you...
Next conference for me is XP Days Benelux in the Netherlands. But talking about the conversation starter, what I always do when I go to a conference, I always have a deck of Agile BS cards in my pocket. So during a conversation, when someone says something, that's always a great opportunity to draw the card that fits with the conversation.
I mean, do you literally call them out and say that's bullshit, like a referee with a red card, you know?
Don't say that's bullshit, but I say this reminds me of this card. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then hopefully people can really resonate with it.
yeah,
Brilliant stuff. We're going to play a little fun game, and it's called aptly bullshit or bold truth, right? So
Ooh.
I'm gonna read off a few statements, and I'd like for you guys to just call out bullshit or bold truth, and we can perhaps talk around them. Um, the first one actually was going to be Agile is dead, but we've already covered that off, so I'm gonna.
Bullshit.
So, so let's go with the next one. So the first one is so AI will make Scrum Masters obsolete.
bullshit.
I love it. Straight in there.
Straight in. What do you think, Noel?
The reason I wasn't so quick is because I can see a lot of value that Scrum Masters are getting from tools like ChatGPT and various different agents that are available. But the context and the feeling, being able to sense and respond is something very difficult for a machine to do.
Absolutely.
So I think that it is a huge accelerator for what we do. I can't see that it will ever replace the ability to sit in a room with a group of people and sense where the opportunities might be.
Yeah.
The spidey signals.
The facilitation thing is not something you can push to a machine, I guess. That's like Noel says, the sensing, but also the way you bring things context specific.
It will enable Scrum Masters to, or it will enforce Scrum Masters to become much more behavioural led and go deep into sort of more cultural elements and things.
What I am seeing,
Yeah.
Steve, just on this, what I am seeing that's starting to happen is that AI is coming in as an additional Scrum team member or team member, as a developer or as a tester or as an automated tester. And again, it's an accelerator for those logical pattern matching things for sure. I think that actually increases the need for someone like a scrum master or a coach in a team to balance that out and make sure the appropriate governance, risks, and all of those things are being managed alongside it.
Someone I know has a conference talk about AI as an aid in as for analysts and business analysts, because it helps you think beyond the obvious, which is a good thing. But on the other side, AI is as good as a person using it, of course, and that's also a bit of the message of the latest Dora report. I don't know if you're aware of the Dora report. Now, this year is about AI-assisted software development, and they say that AI can be an amplifier for people's abilities. So, really good developers, senior developers, will definitely get benefit of AI in their development efforts. But people with less experience and lower skills, well, it amplifies their skills as well, because they will struggle longer. They will get more need more effort to get the right thing out of AI for that.
I think that the complexity is important there. So maybe some of the things that a senior developer is asking for is going to be different than, say, something a BA is asking for. Writing user stories, it's brilliant at that. And I don't think you need a huge amount of skill to be able to, plug in, this is the format that we're using in an organization. This is our definition of done. Here's a bullet point list of 20 things that I want you to translate into user stories, please. And it's brilliant. So yeah, I think the complexity thing there is important as well.
Yeah. Next one. Safe can work.
Nuanced answer there.
I would say out of the two options, that is a bold truth. I have been in an organization and worked as a coach and as a release train engineer for a couple of years. and we did reduce waste and increase flow and had better predictability whilst we were using SAFe. So I think the best thing about it is the PI planning and that quarterly cadence that it encourages. And that's something I've held on to. Anywhere I go, I always encourage some kind of quarterly cadence across those levels, connecting those dots. So I have seen it work.
The IP sprint is you could argue that you need to you need to really make experimenting part of your daily job, but it's hard in a lot of organizations to really allow everyone to experiment whenever they want to. So if you have a specific moment where you take time to cool down, to learn things, to share things, to experiment, that's a great win as well.
Mm-hmm.
My concern with a framework like SAFe is that I was trained in SAFe version 3, so that's quite a while ago. And at that moment, I was convinced that for certain organizations, that was as agile as they could get, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, when you saw the framework evolving, and definitely as of version 5, I was like, no, because it was growing so huge and pulling in everything that was around in the entire agile ecosystem, and also changing things here and there to fit in their own framework, in their own ideas and their own wordings. That was like, no.
Mm-hmm.
They lost me.
I mean, I think that the general sort of understanding of SAFe being an off-the-shelf model immediately is bullshit anyway, isn't it? Right. So that should be the conversation starter, and it's almost like we get bought in when it's too late, when that mindset and opinion has already been formed, that we are then spend all of the time trying to sort of clear the mess up, essentially. Whereas actually, if we're brought in to kind of help them evolve it or implement it in a way that it works for the organization, then yeah, it can work.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, we've got time for one last one, and that is you need to have a technical background to be a Scrum Master.
Bullshit.
Oh, bullshit.
And we might differ here because Koen does have a technical background. I don't, and it's never stopped me from doing the job.
A good interest in what people are doing can help a lot, of course.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to be the expert. I'm out of development since 2010, so that's 15 years now. But my history and my knowledge from the past makes that I can still have conversations with technical people when it's necessary. But you don't have to be the technical expert to be a Scrum Master.
It's having a technical aptitude or just an awareness. And I always say it's if an engineer comes to me with a problem, it's being able to ask the right question to say, well, how big is the problem? What's the impact? What do we need to do? That's it. I'm not there to solve it. Right. So, yeah.
Exactly. I see a lot of, at the moment, there seems to be a bit of a trend on having engineering leads double hat with Scrum Master, kind of team facilitator.
It's in the book,
role.
isn't it? You've got that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we see that. I see it even now. And I think there's pros and cons. It's like anything. If you are very technically led as an organization or as a product and you need strong technical leadership at the team level, then absolutely there's a place for that role, but it will always come at the cost of something else. And that's okay. So it's making a deliberate choice about whether we need someone with a technical experience or leadership or whatever that is. If that's what you need, great, go for it. If it's not, then don't assume that that's what you need, because to Koen's point, you'll find those people naturally step in to start to help solve the problem. And sometimes absolutely we can do that, but we also want teams to be able to do this stuff if we're not around.
Well, exactly. Make yourself redundant, essentially, from the team, not from the organization. Good stuff. Well, both of you, thank you very much for coming on and joining in the conversation. It's been absolutely fascinating and some really amazing insights there. We'll put the link to the book in the show notes so people can get it on. And you mentioned about some events that you're going to. Is there anything else going on for you guys soon? Anything else that's coming up?
I just finished my own book, so
Okay.
it's
Well, another plug.
the one next to the Agile Bullshit book is something that I started when Noel started assembling, editing the book. I had time to do something differently, something similar but differently, which was focusing on DevOps BS, and that resulted in debunking DevOps delusions.
Good stuff. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, guys, and speak to you soon.
Thanks for having us.